Welcome to Data Drive, the Hindu Business Lines podcast on data and everything related to it. I'm your host Nagraj. I'm the Vice President for Data and Insights and designated AI Officer for the Hindu Group of Publications. For the first episode of Data Drive, we have as our guest Mr. N.K. Singh, the founder and CEO of Data Center Guru. He comes with nearly 3 decades of experience across various industry verticals and geographies in consulting, designing, building, and managing of data center infrastructure, managed IT services, and data center facilities. He is one of the well-known data center experts in India who has designed and implemented more than 100 data centers of different types and capacity in India and abroad, and has detailed understanding of data center infrastructure at the nuts and bolts level.
Today's episode is powered by AMD EPIC server processors.
So, Mr. Singh, thank you so much for agreeing to be in our podcast today. Um, I just want to start off asking, for those unfamiliar with the concept of data centers, a lot of us hear the word data centers. We assume many things about data centers, but unless we are in the data center business, even people who deal with data on a day to day basis don't really completely understand a data center and what it entails. Could you start by explaining what a data center is and what role it plays in the digital infrastructure of a country like India?
Thank you very much, Mr. Nagaraj. And I would like to thank Hindu for giving opportunity to share our knowledge and experience to larger audience. So your question is very interesting and more valuable for the people who are not directly from data center industry. So data center is nothing but a closed cell which provide conducive environment to technological equipments, typically where compute, storage, and dissemination of data happens. So, in simple language, it is a kind of a cell or a room or a building which provides conducive environments. Conducive environments for the ICT equipments are typically the quality of power, availability of power, and the environmental conditions, which is more about the thermal or temperature range which is required for the ICT equipments, and other hygienic effects in terms of cleanliness and all those aspects, which is taken care in the data center. More important part is data center is like a building, which is you have got residential building, commercial building, hospital building, hotel building. Data center is also a type of building, and which is named against application or usage of that building, which is done for the data center. The typical difference between these buildings and data center buildings are data center or technological equipments, what we call, is typically very critical for the business. So we also call a business critical information which is being hosted in that equipment. So the entire design of the building, the entire environmental conditions, which is more about electrical, mechanical, safety, security, monitoring and controls, all those systems has to be designed in such a way any failure which happens in the data center, or if you want to do any maintenance in the data center, you don't have to shut down your data center at any point of time. So high availability is the key consideration which has been taken care of. Now, it is very important to understand data center is not evolved today. This data center, if you talk about globally, it started way back in 80s. But when we talk about in India, it started in 90s, okay, where organizations started getting into automation of their business processes, and that's how the technology adaptation happens. And those adaptation of technology by organizations or by the people like you and us has driven the data center demand and the criticality. So if you talk about it till 2000 or early 2000, data center or the technology was seen as a support function to the business or any organization. In 2010, it becomes enabler to the business. Now, when we talk about 2024, so data center is like a driver to the business. You cannot think of any business without usage of the technology. And when we talk about technology, data center is something directly related with it, and that's how you can see the demand of the data center which is being seen in India. And obviously there are different regions. So
True, true. Your answer raised an interesting question for me, which is when you said that it moved from being a facilitator and enabler into being a driver. That's a very interesting concept. I believe that data infrastructure is increasingly core to a company's operations itself. Even if you are not running a digital business, even if you were in a brick and mortar business, the facts, the if you were running a manufacturing business, for example, the amount of data that's collected from machines for operations, for maintenance, for preventive maintenance, IoT, controlled environments, and so on. All of these generate as well as consume a huge amount of data. Isn't that right, Mr. Singh?
yes, absolutely.
Before we dive any deeper, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, AMD EPIC server processors. These processors are designed to handle today's most demanding workloads, whether it's AI inferencing, cloud services, enterprise applications, or large scale data management. They help businesses keep everything running smoothly, no matter the size. What's really exciting is how AMD is pushing the boundaries of energy efficiency. They have set a goal to increase energy efficiency by 30 times by 2025, which is a game changer. That means lower power costs and a much smaller environmental footprint for businesses running data centers. Security is also a top priority with AMD EPIC processors. With built-in features like AMD Infinity Guard, you can trust that your sensitive data stays protected from cyber threats. So whether you're managing a small team or running a global operation, AMD EPIC delivers the performance, efficiency, and security you need. For more details, check out amdhub.in/data center. And would you take the time to sort of tell us um, how many different types of data centers are there? Because we keep hearing multiple terminologies. We keep hearing the word hyperscale, we hear the word edge, and so on. Can you talk to me about the different types? Why are they different? What is the purpose behind them being different concepts?
Sure, this is also very, very interesting question. And it is not like it has become overnight. And all these names, types has matured for last 30 years in India. And earlier we used to call server rooms. Now we call small or medium data center, large data center, hyperscale data center. I will just navigate one by one. So as I said, based on adaptation of technology, which is there, that has actually driven the data center demand. So data center types are divided into multiple principles. So based on that, the types are decided. So the first principle is the usage of the data center. So the people also call it a green data center. People call it modular data center. People call it edge data center. People call it large and hyperscale data center. These are the typical. People might be also talking about co-location data center or multi-tenant data center, on-premise data center. These are the different terminologies what you might be hearing in the industry. And the difference has been like when you talk of a green data center, that means a data center which is complying to more greener requirement in terms of renewable energy usage, and it is built as per a lot of considerations which is used for the green initiative certified by IGBC in India or LEED certification. by USBC. So those are green data center. When we talk about small and medium data centers, are data center which is where the capacity of the data center is between 100 racks or so. When we talk about edge data center, which is a new term, I will address this edge data center in somewhat later. Then we are also talking about large data centers, extra large and hyperscale data center. So when you segregate, then any data center which is around 500 kilowatt is called small data center, small and medium, 5 to 1 megawatt max. And 1 megawatt to 5 megawatt is called medium data center. And 10 megawatt, 30, 40 30 megawatts are called large data centers. And hyperscale data centers are something which 30 megawatt plus, and there are also concept called data center parks. Like you have got IT parks, there are data center parks where you build multiple data center buildings, and it is being occupied for different customers. Now coming back to other terminology which is called co-location data center or multi-tenant data center. So co-location data centers are data center which is used for leasing purpose. So where it is also called multi-tenant. So multiple customers can host their technological equipments in that data center. So they are called co-location and multi-tenant. On-premise data center or captive data centers are the data center which is built for own consumption. Let us say Hindu has built a data center and they are consuming it of their own. They are not leasing out to anybody else. So those kind of data centers are called captive or on-premise data centers. Now, lastly, I'm coming back to edge data center because this concept has come recently, and it has come only because the volume of data which is being consumed by the users at the end sites are becoming more and more. Okay. And due to which it is becoming very difficult or there are challenging to bring the entire data to the centralized data center, process it, and then respond it back. So where performance related things are involved, and also the cost of bringing the data at centralized location and resending it back at the site. So what has happened is now data center architecture has been divided into three stages. It has become a distributed kind of architecture where centralized data center would be there as it is. There would be a regional data centers, so it will take some of the load of the central data center, and then edge data center would be near the load. So typically, edge and regional data center put together will take care of 70-80% of the processing and storage requirement. The consolidation and the key centralized services can be taken care from the centralized data center.
Would it be fair
Yeah.
to say that the edge data center is a similar concept to that of edge computing? So we've heard of edge computing where the computing power is moved
Yes,
closer and closer to the point of contact rather than keep it centralized and do massive transaction processing, right?
absolutely. So edge data centers are the cell as a data center which is used for edge computing. Okay. And the demand is being driven because of adaptation of IoTs, huge penetration of or consumption of data across the country through our telecom network, and also OTT platform, which is driving OTT and social media. And another thing which is also going to drive highway is typically AI, because the application of AI are enormous. So whether you talk about smart cities, a smart factory, a smart residence, a smart So everything there is a smart. And when we talk about smart, there are multiple IoT points which need data needs to be connected, processed, analyzed, and all this needs compute power and storage. So that's how, as of now, is data centers are adaptation are in progress because technologically adaptation around AI and other things are in progress, and maybe in next 2 3 years you will see large scale deployment on the data center. As of now, large scale deployment has not been started yet.
Okay. Actually, when you spoke about edge computing and edge data centers and what's driving the demand for that up, that leads me into our next question that I wanted to ask you, which is what are the key factors driving the growth of data centers in India? How has this market evolved in the last few years?
See, the key driver for the data center demands are, I would say, digital transformation initiatives which India is going through. And you might have also seen in a lot of newspapers the digital transformation journey and achievements which we have achieved in our country from that perspective. And one of the best example is the UPI, which is the best in the world, which is unique technology
Yes.
which is developed by RBI. Apart from that, there are a lot of adaptation of technology, automation of things which has happened across entire BFSI sector. So when you talk about mobile banking and banking is the financial institutions are the limit. When you talk about e-commerce, there is a big boost which has happened. We talked about healthcare, we talked about
Yeah.
the retail, and further we are going to see a lot of uh, adaptation in the retail sector, where today what we are doing is we are just taking the items and going on the counter and billing it and going there. The days are not far where you don't have to do all this. You have to just pick up the items, put in your bag, and just it automatically comes to your mobile, just pay, move. So all these
Yes.
things are going to go. Another key driver to entire initiatives, also government initiatives around citizen services being automated. The huge amount of uh, services are being automated on the government side also. One of
Yes.
the reason is Aadhaar also, how you are linking multiple things on Aadhaar. Next key driver is cloud adoption. So typically after 20 this COVID period, what we see is a lot of companies who are having on-premise data center, they move to the colocation data center, and also the cloud services are becoming much easier for the SME sector to adapt and move. So
True.
people, instead of setting up their own technological infrastructure, they simply go to the cloud, and they take CapEx mode, and scalability is this. They can take up to whatever they want. Any organization, they look for that only. So big players, all the big players, cloud players are already in India. Whether you talk of Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and they are really driving the demand of the data center. When you talk about hyperscale data centers, so 70% of the demands are driven by the cloud players.
Super.
Now, internet and mobile penetrations, so which is another stage where after typically Geo launch, the consumption of data has reached the roof. That has consumption of the data trends has also given a big boost in terms of the data center demand, because whether you talk of OTT or social media, these are all video streaming services which consumes a lot of storage and the bandwidth. And then also, based on the demand of the data center, there has been conducive policies and all and acts developed by the government also. If you talk about data center, we already have national data center policy. We already have a lot of states following state data center policies, which is very conducive in terms of the approval process. Even they are incentivizing the organizations who are going to invest in that state. And third is also one of the recent law which was passed is personal protection law, data personal data protection law.
Yes.
Earlier, we only had a mandate of financial data has to be there in our country. So keeping
Yes.
in view the data sovereignty kind of a law. So personal data protection law also allows only non-critical, non-sensitive data can be placed outside. Otherwise, all personal, critical, and sensitive data has to be there in the country itself. So that
That's a
has
very
also
interesting point you bring in, and I think we should dive into that in the course of this podcast. I was very intrigued by how you said that one of the factors driving the growth is also government policies and government incentives and so on. Uh, can we look into that a little bit closer? We spoke about some of the policies that impact, like the Data Privacy and Data Protection Act and so on. But how about incentives and anything particularly to do with the infrastructure that the government is doing for this sector?
so earlier the major problem was in the for data center industry was there was no segregation of asset for data center. So data center
Okay.
buildings were coming under IT building. So as I said, IT buildings are different, data center buildings are
Yes.
different. And when you start complying IT building requirements with the data center requirements, a lot of issues and lot of waste of money was being invested for nothing. Secondly, there are also a lot of issues around the financial aspect of the data center when the asset class were different. Now the data center has got a separate asset class, and the data center approval process, there are separate set of requirement, statutory requirement which has been defined for the data center and which is being followed. So there is no dilution of what needs to be met. And the third point is the state governments has become much adaptable to the approval process. A lot of states providing single window approach on the approval process, so that earlier they used to get approvals in an year or even more than 1 or 2 years also, which they are getting in few months. So that is the key thing, and digital transformation initiative itself is a big driver for the data
Mm,
center demand.
true.
So government is supportive to support the growth, because if government policies were not aligned, then it would have been a kind of a roadblocks to the growth process.
Thank you so much. Um, having we just now came on this journey where we spoke about the history of data centers, we spoke about the different types, we spoke about how the demand is growing and there are more and more data centers that are getting built and deployed in India, how the Indian government through policy initiatives directly for the sector as well as indirectly through its own digitization and service delivery is also a key factor for the growth. uh, Having said all this, I'm sure there are some unique challenges that India faces when it comes to building and scaling data centers. Um, Straight away, I'm able to think of power consumption, environmental impact, land availability, and so on. Can you throw some light on this, Mr. Singh?
So as you know, data centers are one of the major power guzzler in the industry. Let us say the capacity or electrical consumption of a data center building compared to a kind of a commercial building is typically around 20 times, even more than that. So let us say one commercial building of 8 story consumes, let us say, 10 megawatt of power. So at the same place, if it is a data center building, it consumes around 30, 40 IT loads. So it's around 50, 60 megawatt of IT capacity. So one is the power guzzler. Second part was data center cannot be set at any locations. There are basic requirements which we call it conduciveness of that site for data center. So the
Right.
conduciveness for that site for data center, the key parameters are related with the availability of network. So high bandwidth network with multiple service providers with multiple routes, because without network data center has no value.
Yes.
Second, availability of power is the key. If we are setting up a data center at some place and it doesn't have ample power availability, then it is not conducive for that. Apart from that, there are set of risk assessment which is done on the site based on natural as well as man-made disasters which can happen.
Right.
So there is a set of parameters which is being checked for checking the conduciveness of the site. Third is also high bandwidth connectivity, because whenever we talk about all these five technology players, where whatever data centers are there, they need to be near to the sea landing stations where internet cables are landing, sea landing cables are there. So that's the reason why, if you talk about around 40% or more than 40% of the data center lies in Mumbai region itself. Then it was followed by Chennai, where they have also got a landing station. Now it is followed up by Hyderabad. Now Hyderabad doesn't have any sea landing stations. And Hyderabad is the key example how a conducive state government policy can attract investments. It has become a third data center destination. Then it become Noida is another example how a government positive policies can change the entire dynamics of the investments.
True.
Similar way, Bangalore. Even if Bangalore is an IT city, but when you talk about data center percentage or the volume of data center in Bangalore is not that much, and the demand is not that much. Again, it is linked with the government policies, and also there are a few things which is more about the site conduciveness and all. So, due to which the land prices are soaring. If you go to Mumbai and find a land for data center, it's like it has gone up crazy. When I was around 2 3 years back only, I was in a event and we were discussing. Data center is one of the fastest growing industry which we foresee here. Why can't we put this data center in different part of India to make this growth inclusive for the country? And when we did a deep dive, then that was the problem where the network infrastructure, the power infrastructure, those things were not available, and that's the reason it got concentrated in specific part of India. However, when we see the regional and edge data center demands coming up, so those data centers would be set all across in India. That would be in the type A, B, C class cities, and there we see the kind of growth or inclusion of overall country in this particular domain. And then approval
Yes, sir.
processes we have already come up. Network connectivity still we have got a challenge, because even we go with edge, the network connectivity, 5G maturity and reliability of that network is also very very important, because edge
True.
data center growth is also directly proportional to the success and maturity of the 5G implementation.
So that's interesting, the challenges that we face. Um, but how do the data centers that we already have and the ones that we are building now, how do they compare with global players in this area in terms of technology, in terms of efficiency, sustainability, and so on?
Very good question. So, as far as data center in India is concerned, is compared to developed country like US and Europe, the efficiency is one parameter which varies because of the climatic conditions what they enjoy, specifically in Europe or northern side of America, where the temperature is low. So, based on that, the cooling requirements and the power consumptions reduces. So, which typically, if you talk about data center efficiency, which is measured in PUE, in Europe, you find the lesser PUE for data center. And also, there are a lot of big data centers by technical or technological giants set there only to take that advantage. In our case, the PV is higher because our ambient conditions across the country are very high. Average PV is around 1.5 and 1.6, which we achieve. Another part is the sustainability aspect. Another challenge what we face, I'm just talking about challenge first, is the quality or workmanship in Europe and US versus India. So we find certain kind of there is no major difference, but if you compare, there are certain the quality with respective US and Europe, our workmanship qualities are somewhat lesser. Coming back to other aspect of the data center, when you talk about sustainability, then we are already high on renewable energies on the data centers. There has been mandate by the government. There has been also mandate by the technologically giants who are actually buying the space from the data center players, and they have mandating the data center operators to meet those sustainability requirements in terms
Okay.
of renewable power and usage of recyclable material inside data center. And in India, we already have a body also, IGBC, Indian Grid Building Council. They are certifying data center from the green perspective. We already have a set benchmark for that. Now, coming back to the technology aspect of it, we are already at par with the global on the technology adaptation and monitoring and controls because we are technology superpower as far as the skill and talent is concerned, and even adaptability from that perspective. One of the most important part in India or advantage is the typical build cost of a data center per megawatt in India is around 25 crores, so
Okay.
which is around $3 million. Okay, when
Right.
you go and build up data center outside in other part of the world, this is around 6 to 7 million dollar per megawatt. So it is that huge difference of the build cost itself. And
Okay.
next is the network power cost, and also the power cost, power bill in India is also one of the cheapest.
Right.
So India has got full potential to become a data center hub in. However, again, each and every country has got data sovereignty law, like we have.
Right.
So every
Yes.
country will not have every data outside their country, but non-critical, non-sensitive data can always be hosted in our part of the world, apart from our usage.
Mr. Singh, given what I just heard from you around how we compare with global players in terms of technology efficiency and so on,
Yeah.
what are the biggest opportunities for foreign investments and partnerships in our market?
In India, it is the big opportunity for foreign investor or even local Indian investor to venture into this business. The only thing is that this business is highly critical and highly complex to build and operate. Complex market to manage and also have huge liability clause of their customer because you are managing a very business critical data for them. However, if you see the demand is huge, and if I say 3 years back, the data center capacity in India was around 350 megawatt. Currently, we are sitting in 2025. We are already crossing around 1000 megawatt, and in next 3 years, we are crossing 3 megawatt, 3 to 4000 megawatt capacity. So you can
Wow.
imagine per megawatt cost for only design and build is 25 crores. You can calculate the kind of investment which is required to be done.
Right.
Around 5, 6 years back, India had only 5, 6 players in the data center. Now we have got around 20. So lot of players from outside they came as a joint venture. Lot of uh, has came independently, and a couple of has gone come here as an equity investments also. So
Got
it
it.
is providing a book base because it is not a game of only few players or operators to meet this demand. So you need much more larger number of players to meet this demand.
Got it. Also, when we were speaking about the comparison of Indian data center with the global players, one of the key things that came up was workmanship and also talent. How's the talent and workforce development for this particular ecosystem in India? Because
Yeah.
I recognize that designing, building, managing, operating a data center is a very different kettle of fish from doing software development and IT and IT. It's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think it you reminded me the another challenge, which is I will put it on number one, is the scarce of skilled resources around data center, which we are facing in India, and this phenomena is being faced across the globe. And in the today's world, if you talk about data center skilled resources, they are all 50 plus. There is no much of young generation who has been inducted into this particular industry. In fact, Data Center Guru, which is our company, is a part of another initiative called Data Center Ashram, which
Okay.
we are setting up, and that platform will provide industry-ready skilled resources for data center, and which will do the skill development for the complete range of set of people where experienced professional technicians, fresh engineers, all these set of people go through this platform and have industry ready resources who doesn't need any kind of orientation. Industry would be seeing those kind of things very soon in an year or half or so. That is one step towards meeting those kind of challenge on skill development.
That's great. That's great. Uh, Mr. Singh, thank you so much for your superb insights. I just didn't feel that we had spent that much time talking about data centers, and you made it very interesting and insightful. So, for my last question for you today, in this episode, looking ahead, what do you see as the biggest opportunities for the data center industry in India? What the opportunities obviously also come with the challenges. So it'll be great to hear from you on that.
What I see, the data center demand or the industry growth is not like a surge. This is a sustainable demand, like what we see in late 90s and early 2000 of telco kind of a demand, where you see across India how the 10, 15 years that industry has grown and then matured.
Yeah,
This technology driven data center is something, unless and until there is a big change in the technological or dependency of technology on the silicon chips, which I don't foresee till as of now, because we are setting a lot of semiconductor plants. Till that time, silicon chips drive the technology. Data center has to be there to support and provide of conducive requirements. So I see such kind of a demand sustained for another 2 to 3 decades, not for a couple
okay,
of years. Second advantage of this business is this is a kind of commit revenue and recurring returns.
right.
So when any customers comes with you and host your technological equipments in the data center, it is a long term kind of engagement because it is very, very complex, tedious, and risky to migrate data center from one place to another. For 5 to 10 years, I see huge potential for this industry to grow, and we will see more and more investment around it. However, we will also see certain challenges because of adaptation of technology earlier, because based on the technologically changes, when you start using AI, the power density required per rack for a data center goes up to 200 kilowatt.
True.
Currently we are at around 10 kilowatt per rack. So entire
Right.
data center design, the cooling technologies, distribution technologies will change. So you will also see lot of changes in the philosophy, the design fundamentals, and lot of other things which will be changing with the time, with the adaptation of AI and ML in the data center industry. So that is the point which industry has to see and flexible enough to adapt and cope up such kind of requirements so that it doesn't become a roadblock. It becomes enablers to adapt this growth and move ahead and ride on this growth wave. So this is what I could see from the opportunity and challenges perspective. In nutshell, data center is going to stay like telcos are still there. It has got longer span time, so it is going to stay for decades together. Challenges, we have already been meeting those challenges on the technological evolution, and that's what we have to still manage.
Super. Thank you, Mr. Singh. To listeners, that was Mr. N.K. Singh, CEO and founder of Data Center Guru. Thank you so much again, Mr. Singh, for being with us today. And for listeners, if you would like to see particular individuals interviewed in this podcast, or if you would yourself like to participate in this podcast, uh, contact us through the comments and we'll reach out and we'll manage something. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Singh.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Nagraj, and thanks, audience. I hope this session has given some insights around data center. Thank you and have a great day.
That's it for this episode of Data Drive. Thanks for joining us as we dive into the heart of data centers. If you enjoyed today's chat, leave a comment and share with your network. Today's episode is powered by AMD EPIC server processors. Stay tuned for our next episode, and until then, stay connected and keep the data flowing.